All right, go ahead, Logan.
Hello everybody, Logan Arliss here for another Webinar Wednesday event. For tonight's show, we get the privilege of flying down to Frasca Field, just outside of Champaign, Illinois, to see Frasca International. I'm joined here by President and CEO of Frasca, Mr. John Frasca. How are you doing, sir?
I'm great.
First, I just wanted to say thank you so much for hosting us here, allowing us to come and check out your amazing facility. So Frasca actually is the owner of Frasca Field. They have their own airstrip right outside the back door of their manufacturing plant. We got a chance to go through the facility. We got a chance to see all of their new simulators that they have to offer, as well as, they develop their own software, they develop their own hardware. They have a fabrication department, and everything is built here in-house, which is truly amazing. So John, could you provide us with a history of Frasca and tell us a little bit about Mr. Rudy Frasca?
Yeah, the history of Frasca. Dad founded the company in 1958. He was in the Navy before that, reserve, they call him a TD man, which is a training device man at Glenview Naval Air Station. So he learned about simulation up there. Met some people who kind of attracted him down to the University of Illinois, the Aviation Research Lab. He worked on training devices there and started kind of a garage operation of building simulators. It's not completely, it's very similar to a lot of people that are building simulators now in the garage. It's a home-built industry. We grew from that, early beginning and just kept making more and more complicated simulators. His first customer was American Flyers up in DePage Airport, I think, and they bought 50 or more devices over the years. We've gone from building, simple general aviation devices to much more complicated helicopters and corporate aircraft. And the complexity of the simulators has grown from very basic, mechanical computers to electronic analog computers, and now to very state-of-the-art digital computers. A typical Frasca simulator might have 5 to 20 computers in it, doing different things.
Amazing. So I got to ask, I forgot to mention there is a museum here on the field. So can you tell me the backstory about that museum and how that came to be?
Dad never saw an airplane he didn't try and buy. He obviously loved airplanes and started with single engine utility aircraft, but then in I think late 60s he bought his first Warbird, which is a Wildcat, and then a P-40, and now we have probably close to 30 aircraft that range from classics like the Luscombe, Piper Cub, and like I say the Warbirds as well.
That's awesome. Definitely have to make another trip to check that out. So what can you tell me over the past decade, what have been the greatest improvements in flight simulators?
Yeah, simulation keeps improving as technology advances. So there's been obviously neat things that have happened with computer technology and even the gaming technology that has influenced our industry. The graphics that you see on your computer has enabled wonderful out-the-window scenarios or visual systems on simulators. The earliest simulators were instrument only. You didn't have an out-the-window scenery, so you have to say one of the biggest advances is putting out-the-window scenery, the visual systems, and we can connect them up to real-world data sources, satellite imagery, that kind of thing to allow pilots to now do contact maneuvers, VFR maneuvers in the simulator.
Yep. Yeah, that's such a good feature to have. Now, can you give us a breakdown? So there's many different types, category classes of simulators. Some are motion, full motion, some are not. Could you kind of break down the category and classes of simulators and trainers that are available in the market today?
Yeah, you could teach a class on the different designations the FAA has, from the most basic AATD, which is Advanced Aviation Training Device, up through the full flight simulators, and there's 10 or more levels of devices. The highest level is the full motion level D simulator, and that's kind of what the airlines use. It allows the pilots to basically do all the training in the simulator and then go into the airplane, let's say a Boeing 737, and fly with paying passengers. So that's kind of the apex of it. And At the more basic pilot training, they have flight training devices. These are generally fixed base. There's several levels of those that vary in sophistication, but that would be using a private pilot or instrument or commercial pilot program. And there you'll see a replica of the cockpit, a control loading system, and pretty advanced visual system that we were talking about.
Absolutely. So you just mentioned, you can go into a simulator, do most of your training, hop out of that simulator, and some of them are so dialed in now that your first flight will be in the actual aircraft. So how do you get the simulators to get so dialed in with the aircraft and actually feel like an airplane, which allows somebody to do that?
Yeah. In the old days, it was just very tune it up, and the engineers would play with it and try and get it to match what the pilot said it should do. Now the most advanced simulators, we're doing a flight test program with the airplane. So we'll put instrumentation on the controls on the outside of the airplane. We'll measure angle of attack, control forces, side slip angle, and we fly the aircraft through dozens to hundreds of maneuvers, and all that data then is taken by the engineers to come up with aerodynamic models, and then the simulator put in, and then they fly those maneuvers, confirm that it matches the aircraft recordings, and if it doesn't, the engineers will tweak it up. And then at the end of the day, the pilot flies it and still feels something needs to be tweaked. We examine the data, we tweak the model, and we'll get it dialed in to satisfy kind of a subjective evaluation.
Absolutely. It's really amazing. Amazing how dialed in they are. So Frasca, a few months ago, just announced a new Navy subcontract, which you'll be providing 18 helicopter sims. What other contracts or agreements does Frasca currently have to provide simulators?
Yeah, I just mentioned a few things about the Navy program, because that's one where they're really trying to advance how much simulators are used. Whereas in the past they were focused on instrument maneuvers, now we're trying to get to the point where we can teach hovering in the simulator.
Mm-hmm.
So that really can have an impact on the cost, quality, safety of the pilot's training program. We have right now a program going where we're building, we actually have to build a larger building. We need a 40-foot clear ceiling to build this big helicopter simulator. And that's going to an international military customer. Every week or so we're selling the smaller devices, our reconfigurable training devices to a school here or there. Flight training devices, there's a lot of large universities that buy those, so we have a lot of those types of programs going. We produce over 50 different simulators a year of these various complexities.
Wow. So you would say that the smaller interchangeable are probably the most sold device for Frasca?
In terms, the reconfigurable training device is our highest volume product.
Yep.
It's one we can build on a production line. The larger simulators are all very custom built, and they can take up to 2 years to build, to design, and install.
Great. And how much customization, so for the smaller simulators that you have that are interchangeable, how much can the customer customize that to fit their own needs?
Well, we have a fixed number of kits that are available, and the kit consists of different panels, different control systems, so we can match it up to be a Cessna 172, either an analog or a G1000 configuration, or the Piper Archer, Piper Seminole, the Diamond DA40, and as the market develops, we'll see other opportunities and develop additional kits for it.
Absolutely. So the big simulators, the level D full motions, what does the production time look like on one of those simulators?
It comes down to, have we built it before or
Right.
not? And if we haven't built it, then you've got the whole flight test program, the engineering process that all has to occur. And that, like I say, can be 24 to 30 months. If we've built it before, you can compress the schedule because the engineering's already done, and we can get that down 12 to 18 months.
Wow. So, as we all know, recently the airline industry was struck hard by the COVID-19 pandemic. Have you seen this trickle down into your operations and in the simulator industry?
We saw a lot of caution. The schools that overnight lost the ability to operate. And then they slowly came back. The best schools figured out how to do it, and we saw a little dip and then recovery. It never stopped completely. Some of the customers, military kept going right steady through it, and we're seeing it come back now.
We have a question coming in from one of our viewers. Someone said you might recycle simulator parts. Can you tell me a little bit about how you recycle parts for your aircraft simulators?
I'm not sure exactly what they mean. I mean, sometimes we use aircraft parts. We might buy a salvaged aircraft cockpit, and we can build a simulator in that. But the supply for that kind of part is very much out of our control. Is there one available? Maybe this time it is, and another time it isn't. So we tend to try and build the cockpits ourselves. We'll actually scan the cockpit and fabricate those parts using either 3D printing or CNC machinery or whatever. We use, sometimes we'll use aircraft parts, flight controls or something that we can get a hold of. So.
What does the future market, or your vision of the future market, look like for aircraft simulators?
You know, my vision is that all training, all introduction to maneuvers and so on should be done in the simulator. It's such a good training environment compared to the airplane. And the airplane's such a terrible training environment. So in the simulator, we can set up a problem. We can, concentrate on, say, a particular phase of landing or, a particular maneuver, and just do it over and over again until the student gets it. So I think we're going to see more and more maneuvers introduced in the aircraft, and eventually be able to do some testing and checking in the aircraft, which right now is all, in the simulator. Right now it's all done in the aircraft. We put astronauts in space, and they've never flown a training mission in a rocket. We should be able to do something like that with simulators.
Absolutely, yeah, that brings me back to when we were talking with Mr. Rod Machado, and I asked him if a 40-hour private pilot would be out of reach, and he said not if you use simulators. Simulators greatly reduce the time and the cost of flight training for new pilots especially.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, and I think it's just key to have the right syllabus and have motivated instructors that want to use the simulator.
Yep. So, what are the challenges hindering the development of the simulator industry?
Well, for a lot of aircraft, the aircraft manufacturer is controlling the data and the parts that go into it, and that intellectual property can be quite costly to build a simulator. So, that's a challenge. Where do we get that data from if the aircraft OEM won't provide it? Other challenges is just trying to, maintain the fidelity of the simulator without driving the cost too high.
Mm-hmm.
The large number of avionics systems and variations in them, make it difficult to build a simulator for every variation of the different aircraft fleets. Just
Right.
Lots and lots of engineering cost.
Right. Great. So before we leave, what advice would you give to someone who's looking to be successful in the world of aviation?
I grew up, Dad, when we were kids, I remember going to the airport and hanging out, and, the advice is, do something you love. And I think aviation is something you definitely, people will find they enjoy it. If you find it to be work, maybe it's not for you.
Yep.
And for me personally, it's been kind of a mix of engineering, running a business, and flying that really gives me a diversity. And for that reason, I probably recommend that have a plan B or kind of an alternate, something to keep you busy and challenged.
Absolutely. So what is your favorite plane to fly, if you mind me asking?
I learned to fly in a Cessna 170 that we still fly. So that was a long, long time ago. My son soloed that same airplane a couple years ago, got his instrument rating in it, so he passed me by. I make simulators, but I never got an instrument rating. Yeah, it is. It's crazy. But so that's just one that feels comfortable to be in. I also fly a Luscombe, owned one years ago, and that was a fun airplane. We've got an open cockpit PT-23, and that's a blast.
Yeah.
And, it's just fun to get out there.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, you never go far.
Mhm.
You just stay around the immediate area or head down to someplace that has a restaurant and go there 20 minutes away or something, so.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I just want to say thank you again for your time. Thank you for your hospitality. We thoroughly enjoyed it. Everybody else, if you get a chance to come check out Frasca, please do. Awesome people down here, and we hope to see you again soon.
Thank you, you're welcome anytime.